So, at the beginning of the film, we see a girl who, along with her brother, opens the grave of a dead spirit and then goes inside to lie down. This was Sidra. She wanted to know if, after death, people would be given a list of their bad deeds. Her brother writes the last rites on the grave and sits beside her. As soon as the grave is sealed, the cameras start showing outside the grave that a snake was passing from above and entering the grave. Sita's brother did not even notice this and did not inform Sita about it. The reason behind this strange experiment was her past. Her mother died in a bomb blast right before her eyes, and since then, she had this thought ingrained in her mind that good people don't always have a good end, bad people also benefit in the world, and even after death, they don't receive any punishment. And good people don't receive any rewards either, as they were told in religious studies. After Sita's mother died, Sita and her brothers were left at an orphanage years ago. There, Teacher Lillian tells her that the fate of evil humans is inevitable, whether they receive it after death. But Sidra did not believe anything easily, and to prove her teacher wrong, she took her brother and went to a room. No one had been to this room before Sita because it was believed to be haunted, and people would disappear once they entered. She went inside with her brother Adil, and upon going further inside, they found complete darkness, and something strange happened as they went deeper. Adil and Sita could barely see each other, and they couldn't even hear each other's voices. Worried for her brother, she moved forward and saw a child in the same tunnel who was very scared and frightened. It was not actually a child, but his soul, and when he told Sita his name in a strange, fearful manner, Sita got scared. The child had told his name was Ishmael in a somewhat terrifying manner, so Sita stepped out of the tunnel in fear, where she saw that Adil was waiting with the villagers. It seemed like these people were being released again, yet despite coming here, Sidra had only one question in her mind. How could Ishmael have come to her solid tunnel? Why was his soul wandering like this? The teachers and the people working here started to follow and listen to them, and one day when a teacher and a caretaker were talking, Sita found out the truth about Ishmael, that this orphanage belonged to a very wealthy man. But he did not build the orphanage for good purposes. He did not build it to support the children. Instead, he built the orphanage for himself. He supported helpless children, but took away his favorites. Wealthy conspirators misused Ishmael and others, causing his soul to wander. Sita could hear him, that this spirit had chosen Adil. The teachers say that after that night, Ishmael did not appear to anyone, but Sita had seen him inside the tunnel. Now, Sidra goes to save her brother by going to the forest near her brother, but before she could catch him, her brother was grabbed by both hands. A trap could have been set up for Sidra, so those people also caught Sidra and imprisoned her in the storeroom, whose windows and doors were sealed. To save her brother, Sidra did not lose her mind. She took off her scarf and, with his help, successfully broke the sealed windows as she came out. The caretaker came to her. She had brought some money and necessary items for Sidra so that she could save her brother and leave here as soon as possible. The caretaker had also informed where these people were taking Sita's brother. While Sita was running through the jungle path, she first reached the road where Adil was being taken. She distracted the driver by hitting him with a rock and then saved her brother and ran away from there. After that, the scene cuts to 10 years later, showing an older Sita who now works in an office job. Despite the passage of time, Sita still had the thought of her mother's death on her mind, and at that time, the thought did not leave her that evil people meet the same fate as good people after death. In the world, evil people always benefit. Even after death, it doesn't matter to them. Nor do good people receive any rewards or peace. Now she wanted to prove this point and was ready to go to any lengths for it. She selects the orphanage owner, who has engaged with children since childhood, for her experiment. Was now living in the old age home. First, the documents present the evidence of all his misdeeds. And then, by intoxicating the old man, she makes him confess all his crimes. And due to all these evil acts, in the end, he himself commits suicide. Kavabai's children were also aware of all her bad deeds. But because Laobai was very wealthy, they did not say anything to her. After her death, not a single son stood by her. The old age home staff conduct her funeral. Adil purifies her, after which she is clothed in a shroud and buried. You wanted to directly see what would happen after the death of this evil spirit. So she lay in the grave. This is the same scene that was shown to us at the start of the movie. After lying in the grave, Sita turned off her mobile. Meanwhile, Adil, performing last rites, told her, "If any problem, provide me housing," and sat nearby. Snakes started coming near the grave, which Adil noticed after a while. Therefore, he immediately removed Sita from the grave. The longer Sita stayed in the grave, the longer nothing abnormal occurred there, which means her suspicions were proven. She was proven right. After death, bad people do not receive any punishment. To explain this matter, she went to a morning show and there. She also takes her recording, but as soon as the recording is played, but there was nothing. It was discovered that Adil had deleted everything, and thus no one believed Sita's words. Sita screamed and cried and asked Adil, "Why did I do this?" Adil explains that he felt it was not right because by doing this, evil people would gain more share and good people would not appreciate him. He tells Sita, "Which one are you good at? You didn't think for yourself or others, and you failed to perform your duty properly at the old age home, your first responsibility." Sita gets heartbroken by the heartfelt words and goes home crying with her mother's picture. While crying, she feels as if Laubai had. While performing the housing ritual, she went into a room, but there was no one there as Laubai had already died. When she began to close the door of that room, she once again needed Laubai. Vastunayati, upon hearing this matter, turned around and saw a shadow there. She went to look and saw that it was an old lady who lived in this old age home. She was crying and told Sita that her husband was cheating on her and living nearby. Upon being told, Sita went with her and saw a. They were spending time with a nurse, and seeing that, she began to complain loudly. Even the entire old age home staff gathered here. Urta was unable to tolerate this trauma at her age. She wanted to kill this man, but Sita stopped her and took her away from here. At night, when the old Urta started doing laundry, she accidentally left her ring in the laundry machine. When she went in to retrieve it, by mistake, the machine's button was pressed and she kept spinning in the laundry and died. As soon as everyone heard her noise, they came and took her out, but by then, she was lifeless. The death of her wife caused that spirit tremendous shock because she had not even apologized to her wife yet. In this shock, he was fading away crying. Now Sita wants to do something for this old spirit. Adil's words had affected her deeply, so she went to her own old age home where she was staying. She went to a shaman and asked if he could do something to call Auntie's soul. The shaman agreed and, along with some elderly men, sat at a round table. They had lit some candles there, but they were one person short. They asked Sita to sit here, but Sita was feeling scared. However, without Sita, their ritual could not be completed, so Sita was forced to sit. By performing the shaman's ritual, the soul entered the shaman. Now the shaman. The aunt's spirit began to speak in the housing, and upon hearing her voice, Hajban tried to ask for forgiveness, but she, Urta, says, "I will not forgive you like this until you kill the spirit with whom you conspired against me." Upon hearing this, Sita felt something was wrong. She immediately told the shaman to stop the ritual, but at that moment, all the elderly people in the auntie's housing began speaking, asking to kill that spirit. Sita felt scared, so she got up from the ritual. She extinguished all the candles and opened the curtains. She broke the ritual and immediately went to save the nurse's life. She had just reached the nurse and was about to tell her that the old man had come near to kill the nurse. To save her, Sita. She took her into a room and closed the door, but there was already another colleague present who, mistaking Urta's daughter, killed her. She asked the uncle, "Why kill this innocent person?" He replied, "Urta asked me to punish her to prevent sorrow after death, so I did. She had asked me to punish this girl, and I did so." Hearing this, Sita became suspicious, thinking perhaps someone had harmed Sita's Maurani. But Sita could not verify anything about this Maurani. She wondered whether dead people even receive punishment or not. She now searched on the internet and found out that after Sita's show, many people were directly impressed by Sita and thought that an experiment was happening somewhere, and at this level people have many strange and bizarre things. For those who were not good, the sounds of screaming and vomiting were recorded from their graves. Some graves found peace, which meant that after death, punishment really is given. Seeing all this, Sita was amazed and wondered why none of this happened with Pirlaubai. Thinking the same, she went and dug Pirlaubai's graves. She decided to go back inside, but what she saw on the mound was that even Pirlaubai's bones were not there. Suddenly, the soil and gravestones began to pile over her. To escape them, she dug a ditch towards the fire and went into it. As soon as she made a path, the soil behind her blocked her previous way. Sita continued moving forward and came across a tunnel, which she entered. It was the same tunnel where she had met that stall in this city. Sita thought that perhaps due to lack of oxygen, she was having hallucinations, but the next moment she saw Ismail's old residence. This made her realize that she was indeed inside the same tunnel. As she went further into the tunnel, Sita saw her childhood in front of her. Outside a broken window stood her mom and dad, waving their hands for her. Seeing them, Sita became emotional. Upon seeing them, she cried, and suddenly everything vanished. Tala returned to her former self and moved forward again. Then she heard Birlaubai's regretful screams. As Sita moved forward, she also met the children from her orphanage, ahead of whom was Isma. Sita felt that perhaps all this was her imagination. She remembered that ghosts do exist, but until you believe in them, they do not appear. She closed her eyes and convinced her mind that there was nothing here. When she opened her eyes, only orphaned children were in front of her again. Now Ismail appeared before her and started scolding her. He said, "Why did you leave me that day? Didn't you understand that I was scared? Someone was coming after me." Hearing this, Shida became troubled, and then she heard someone's voice coming from above. It was the voice of a monster. Seeing this, Ismail told Sita not to be afraid and advised her not to fear it. To escape from it, you only need to jump into the tunnel. My tunnel was very deep and nothing could be remembered inside. The monster was rapidly approaching them, so Sita jumped into that tunnel with Ismail. Suddenly, when she regained consciousness, we found her lying with Lahubai. Shida looked around and saw Lavabai lying beside her. What she had seen seemed like a terrifying nightmare. She screamed and called Atul, but there was no one outside. No one came to help her. Now a snake entered the grave and climbed over Sita. It bit Shida and then entered Lavabai's mouth. As it entered the snake, Lavabai sat up. Someone had torn Lavabai's head with a hammer. The snake's spit fell onto Sita's mouth and she became completely frightened. But this was just the beginning. Lavabai's head was fixed again and she was reshaped in the same way with torching. Instead of her tongue, many snakes had emerged. Her